Welcome to Riot, welcome to Radical Impartation of Truth. Last week we brought you highlights of God's Not Dead, the one we did in Nigeria. We brought you some other news items, and this week we're also going to be starting with the news item by featuring our weekly news from Anu Omidei.
Hello, my name is Anu Omidei with headlines of this week's Christian Weekly News. The former Bishop of Liverpool, the Right Reverend James Jones, has been praised for his work in the process that led to the inquest verdict this week that the 96 football fans who died during the crush at Hillsborough Stadium in 1989 were unlawfully killed. The Right Reverend Jones was the chairman of the Hillsborough Independent Panel that produced a report on the 12th of September 2012, known as Truth Day, which at long last paved the way for the second inquests that concluded this week. This was after 2 decades of the victims' families fighting alleged police cover-ups and Bishop's allegations against the victims that they contributed to their own deaths. He said, "The families often said to us during the process that this is the first time that anybody has ever listened to us, that anybody has ever taken us seriously." The Bishop of Leeds praised the Right Reverend Jones's courage, clarity and committed impartiality, whilst the current Bishop of Liverpool, Paul Bayes, praised his work while stating that justice must follow the verdicts. Children as young as 4 have been asked to choose what gender they are before they start primary school. Brighton and Hove City Council sent a letter to hundreds of families informing them which school their child would attend in September, but also asked them to reply by indicating which gender their child preferred. The letter contained a tick box for male or female with a note beside it stating, "We recognise that not all children and young people identify with the gender that they were assigned at birth or may identify a gender other than male or female." It also indicated that if the children have a gender identity other than male or female, parents should leave the box blank and discuss it with the child's school. The letter was met with anger by many parents who believe this is a dangerous approach. Andrea Williams, Chief Executive of Christian Concern, stated that we should be encouraging children in the gender in which they are born. And finally for today, the international rock star Bono from the mega band U2 has collaborated with Eugene Peterson, author of The Message, to release a short film discussing the book of Psalms in the Bible. The 20-minute film is set in Mr. Peterson's home in Montana and at New York's Gallery for the International Arts Movement, and features an in-depth discussion between the two men. Its producer, David Taylor, said it aims to engage with fans of U2, fans of Eugene's writing, church and lay leaders, artists, worship leaders, and folks involved in the intersection between faith and culture. He also said, "Our hope is that as a result of watching the film, people will be curious or inspired to read the Psalms themselves." Well, that's all for today. I'm Anu Omidei, and you're watching Christian Weekly News.
Welcome back. Now, last week we brought you highlights from God's Not Dead and things that happened in Nigeria, and it was very interesting to see what happened at the Capitol Assembly and the House on the Rock. But guess what? We also were at the premiere of God's Not Dead 2 in UK. Welcome to the premiere of God's Not Dead 2. We're going to be meeting some of the actors and some of the people who have not just come to watch this film, but also some of the clients of Christian Concern, that their lives, the reality of what they've experienced, is actually what is being portrayed in God's Not Dead.
So, Richard, we're here to watch a fictional story, God's Not Dead 2, about somebody getting into trouble for expressing their Christian faith. But you are actual reality, a real true story of something like this happening. Please tell us what happened to you.
Sure, I'm a doctor. I work as a GP in Margate and have done since 1998, for 12 years until 2010. When my case arose, I'd spoken to many patients about faith, seen hundreds of people benefit, either become Christians or receive prayer or move further forward and helped not just in terms of their faith, but in terms of their health. We know that faith massively benefits health these days. So I was continuing to do so until 2010, when I had a case after a young lad, although he was an adult, came to see me. Many issues. We talked about things in a standard medical form. Then I asked for permission to talk about my faith after we talked about his faith, which he'd admitted wasn't helping him. When I did so, he listened to me and then called me an idiot and then stormed out. He'd given me permission to talk, so I did so. And I still think to this day that if he'd taken up the advice I'd given, it would have really helped him. But the next day, his mother rang him up and said, "How did you get on at the doctor's?" He said that I only talked to him about Jesus, which wasn't fair, because we'd had 20 minutes of standard medicine first of all. Although I did talk to him about Jesus at the end, she was outraged that anyone could be as unprofessional as that. And 7 weeks later, having contacted the GMC, the General Medical Council, 7 weeks later I got this huge bundle in the post claiming from the GMC that I'd harassed a vulnerable patient, whereas in fact what I was trying to do was give him the gospel, which I thought would help him. So that was my case, and Christian Concern not only supported me but defended me in court. Predictably, I think we lost, and I got, if you like, a yellow card medically, warning me for 5 years. But along the way, I thought it was really important, A, to use their expertise, and I was very grateful for their support, but also to stand up for other people, because I knew so many other people were running into trouble for their faith in our country.
Okay, so Richard, after you'd had your case, you wrote a book, didn't you, Christians in the Firing Line, about various cases that Christian Legal Centre and Christian Concern have taken on. Tell us about this book.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons I decided to fight my case was with Christian Concern was not just because of my own individual outrage, although I was outraged, but I knew that so many people in the country were having trouble. In fact, 2 years previous to my case, Andrea Williams brought 2 medics and 2 nurses to the Christian Medical Fellowship, all of whom she defended. But it wasn't just medical people, it was a whole range of people. And I sat down in the bath one day, and in fact I was having treatment for cancer at the time. I was off work, and God really downloaded his dissatisfaction, and my outrage was stimulated. So I talked to Christian Concern, and this book actually talks about 13 cases, of which I'm number 8. A doctor, an electrician, a beautician, a magistrate, a counsellor, various other people, a nurse, there's more than one doctor in here. People from a whole range of professions who've run into trouble for their case in this country. And this is not happening abroad, this is happening in England. And I think Christians need to be aware of it. One of the encouraging things in the book is not one of these 13 cases struggled with their faith. They may have struggled with their work, but all people were encouraged to continue in the faith and to fight on. But my goodness, they've had trouble at work. Some have been suspended, others sacked, some have never worked again. So it's tough being a Christian in England today.
So this book is a great way of realising that this story, that's a fictional story, God's Not Dead 2, is a reality, and the 13 stories in this book, you can read the background and the more detail about them and all the work that we do about them by getting hold of this book. My name's Tim Dieppe, I work for Christian Concern, and we are here at the premiere of the God's Not Dead 2 movie, which is a story about how somebody suffers for expressing their Christian faith at work.
God's Not Dead 2 may be a work of fiction, but its story brilliantly yet chillingly parallels the reality of our situation in the UK. It is my life. It is the story of the work of the Christian Legal Centre, the story of the nurse suspended for offering prayer, the story of the teacher sacked for giving her testimony, the story of the electrician punished because he wanted to have a cross in his van. It's for real.
The judicial oath is to be fair and reasonable and keep the law. But as I also mentioned to the Lord Chancellor some time ago, that I kept the oath because the last 4 words of the oath are "So help me God."
But you're not actually supposed to bring in personal religious beliefs.
Christian faith is a message of embracing all people, actually, and it is a message that celebrates freedom, and I think we do have a responsibility to be people who extend love to those around us.
Over the 13 years I've been a GP, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of patients massively helped by faith. And that is because, in my view, and in their view, there is a God who really cares for them.
Well, I follow my Lord and leader, so no, I won't tone down. I won't be intimidated or threatened by anybody.
Are you going to return to preaching in Taunton?
Well, I'm going to be preaching right out here. You can listen to the gospel and perhaps you guys will get born again and saved as well.
It's quite a shock. This is all quite a whirlwind, and it's just good to know that you've got somebody on your side.
I didn't realise just how strong my faith to me was until it was questioned, and then it was a case of my job or my faith, and I chose my faith.
God's Not Dead 2. This film is part of the history of Jesus Christ and the relevance of it in society today. Bible-believing Christians should be given the right as well to express themselves both publicly and privately. We're glad that this film is out, and we're hoping that it has global support for what it seeks to address. We at Christian Legal Center live this reality, and as you watch this film, we hope that you can stand by us and support Christians across the globe who are not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, because it's the power of God unto salvation.
Hello, and I'm here at the God's Not Dead 2 premiere, a fictional story about somebody suffering for expressing their Christian faith at work. But I'm here with Celestina, a true story of someone who suffered for expressing their Christian faith at work. Celestina, tell us what happened to you.
Well, I was working with Merton Council, and before I took on the job, I explained to them that I do not work Sundays, and they were agreeable, but later on they changed their mind, and I ended up losing my job because of that.
Wow, so you lost your job, having them agreed that you couldn't work on Sundays, and then they changed their minds, and you actually lost your job for saying that. Wow. So there's an example of a true story of somebody suffering for wanting to go to church on Sunday. That's why you wanted to take Sundays off, isn't it?
Hi, I'm Paul Kuo. I play the role of Martin Yeep in the new movie God's Not Dead 2, where he is an exchange student struggling with his newfound faith, Christianity, and he experiences struggles between him and his family, and as well as a bigger story that hovers around the court case that the main character, Melissa Joan Hart, plays. And stories like this are happening all around the world, and especially here in the UK. So be sure to mark your calendar and watch God's Not Dead 2 in theaters everywhere.
I'm standing here with two magistrates who have also got into difficulty for expressing their Christian faith in their role as magistrates. So, Andrew, tell me what happened to you.
It was six or 8 years ago, and it came up when civil partnerships were coming on the horizon. I said we're going to get a conflict of two laws. The Children's Act says the priority is the welfare of the child. The new sexual regulations are going to say you ignore the sexuality, you can't obey both laws. How are we going to handle it? So I asked for an expert opinion from social services. Can you tell us whether it's for the child's welfare to be brought up in a same-sex household? And the question was never answered, which is funny because the justice system prides itself on hearing both sides of a case and then coming with an answer, and they made no effort to hear any facts or representations at all.
Wow, and that's interesting. And Richard, your story is somewhat similar, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Yes, I was in a family court and an adoption, and we had two men who were married, and all I said was that I felt, according to my Christian way of looking at things, that it's the best for a child is to be with a man and a woman, and that was my legal requirement, was actually to do the best for the child. And I got a little bit castigated for that, and I ended up by being removed from the magistracy.
Wow, so two stories of people who've got into trouble for trying to do the best for the children that they're responsible for. True stories of people getting into difficulty for expressing their Christian faith.
I hate what people like your clients stand for. We're going to prove once and for all that God is dead.
You're passionate about what you believe. I mean, let's face it, it's why you're in trouble in the first place.
A student asked a question about remarks allegedly made by Jesus, and your answer incorporated Scripture itself.
Yes. What were you thinking, Grace? I gave an honest answer to a student's legitimate question. I am not going to be afraid. to say the name Jesus.
They're asking that you be fired, plus revocation of your teaching certificate. You're on your own.
So what's the good news?
I don't like to lose.
They've been dreaming of a case like this.
They want to make an example of you.
Their true motivation was to take an innocent question and turn it into an opportunity to preach.
The message of the gospel has us standing in the way of a lot of things that powerful people want. We're at war.
On the order in the matter of Thorley versus Wesley.
Mr. Kane will insist faith isn't on trial here, but that is exactly what is on trial.
If we grant Miss Wesley the right to violate the law, then our society will crumble.
The four gospels contain the actual words of Jesus.
You're looking to prove Jesus Christ existed? That's ridiculous.
If we're going to insist that a Christian's right to believe is subordinate to all other rights, then it's not a right. Somebody is always going to be offended.
God's not dead, he's surely alive. Come on. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion.
Have you reached a decision?
I would rather stand with God and be judged by the world than stand with the world and be judged by God.
God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's
God bless you.
Careful, or you might end up on trial.
So I'm here with Gary McFarlane and his wife, and at the God's Not Dead 2 movie, which is a fictional story about somebody getting in trouble for expressing their Christian faith. But Gary, you've got a real, true story about this. Tell me something about your story.
A number of years ago now, what was it? Gosh. I really was working for Relate, the marriage relationship counseling organization, and I was asked what my view would be if I were required to provide sex therapy to same-sex couples. And at the time I was training to be a sex therapist. I actually didn't know what my view was, but I was forced to express a view. And because I said, well, I've been a Christian for 30 odd years, and therefore I would have a conflict, on that basis, and after a number of things, in essence, I was dismissed for gross misconduct on the basis that I expressed a view that says I would have a conflict providing sex therapy to same-sex couples, even though there were no real clients, no real couples, just for expressing that view.
So Gary was dismissed for expressing a Christian view, a true story of someone suffering in their workplace, just like this God's Not Dead 2 movie.
I'm George Hargreaves. I'm here in London at the UK premiere of God's Not Dead 2. I'm here with Paul Quo and Trisha Lafarge, stars of the show. Welcome to London.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, thank you for having us.
And have you been around? Have you seen any of the sites whilst you're here? I know you've seen the movie, so I'm not going to ask you about the movie.
We've been all over, actually. London is a great city.
Oh yeah, full of history. Love the city. It's beautiful here.
And now the movie is a sequel to God's Not Dead, which really shocked audiences in a good way here in the UK, went straight in at number 20 with just 21 cinemas. It went straight into the top 20 a couple of years ago. Are we going to have the same kind of excitement with God's Not Dead 2?
Well, we certainly hope so. That's why we're here.
And what's it been like in the States?
It's been really good. We get Paul and I were just talking to somebody yesterday about how the fans of the movie, they really feel like they know us and they can talk to us, and we love that. We love to hear their stories and to hear how the movies affected them and how it affected their lives.
Now, you had stories in the first one, and this is a sequel. How do your stories progress, Paul?
Well, then you have to watch the movie to find out, right? That's why we're here. But you get to find out, my character, Martin, and what he has to go through now that he's a Christian, and what the struggles that he have to go through with his family. And then you get to...
Well, Amy is continuing her spiritual journey, and mostly in this movie, her spiritual journey and her questions about God are reflected in how she feels, how she responds to what Melissa Joan Hart's character is going through and Haley Arantia's character is going through. And she finds herself, I think, on a side of this court case that she didn't think she'd be on. And I think through that, she learns where her spirituality lies.
And this is indeed a courtroom drama. Last time...
Also very funny at moments, like laugh
There's
out
great
loud
moments.
funny, right?
Yes, absolutely. And there's some really very intimate moments where, you really see the characters open up, and vulnerable moments where you really see them open up to God. So there's a little bit of everything for everyone in there.
No, but you're not wrong. I would agree that it is a courtroom drama, but it has a lot of emphasis on relationships and new relationships. Paul's character, Martin, meeting David and Benji, and my character meeting Melissa and who's Grace and Haley's character, and kind of how having a common purpose and goal and response to injustice pushes everybody together and forward. So it is a courtroom drama, but it's also very touching
It's a lot more
and
than that,
intimate and
yes.
small and funny at the same time. There's some really funny moments.
Have you been surprised how the movie has resonated around the world? It took the first one took $70 million around the world. And here, as we've already said, it went top 20, straight out the box. Has that surprised you at all?
I mean, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, good. No.
It was nothing but a surprise for me. I didn't even know that the movie opened obviously on a Friday, and on a Tuesday night, our director Harold Kronk texted me and said, "I'm saying your name to anybody who will put a microphone in my face." And I said, "Well, where?" He said, "I'm on a red carpet in New York." I said, "Red carpet for what?" He said, "The movie. It's coming out on Friday." I mean, I didn't even know. And I went to the theater in Burbank, and Benji was there, and so were the two writers and our casting directors randomly. And we watched the movie. I went with a bunch of my girlfriends. They were like, "Well, we have to go," And next thing I know, the credits roll. One of my best friend since I'm 4 years old looked at the phone. She says, "It's number 2 behind Divergent." I said, "What?" We walked out of the theater. The doors opened, and we were just bombarded with children running up who recognized me from the theater, and we couldn't believe how much it meant to them. So surprise, absolutely. It was probably one of the biggest, most pleasant surprises of my life.
And for you, Paul, similar?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, aside from all of that, I mean, I think I saw the screening after you saw that screening, and so I ran into some of them afterwards. But I think I missed you right at that Burbank screening. But
wow.
And after that screening too, I mean, I got bombarded with a lot of people coming like, "Oh, you're the guy from God's Not Dead." And I get bombarded. I mean, I get like randomly asked in the middle of the street or in a restaurant in Hawaii one time, by a fan saying like, "Are you the guy from God's Not Dead too? God's Not Dead." So yeah, I'm really surprised at how well everyone is received the first movie, and also like just the amount of stories that we hear from people from all over the world sharing how this movie has affected their lives, and like how they've grown and how they brought other people to the church because of this movie, and just all the wonderful stories. And that's just shocking because you never expect a movie to do things like that, but this one has. So
Indeed, and you actually come from a Christian background, a Christian household. How did that happen? Did they put a casting call just for Christians? That kind of would be illegal over here. How did it happen that you, as a believer, got into this role and into this movie?
I just got in the movie and I auditioned. I auditioned like everyone else. I went to the casting director's office. I had a bunch of friends who also auditioned for the same role. Some of them are Christians, some of them are not Christians. They all just went in like any other role that you would audition for, and I happened to get, I happened to have gotten the part, and I got, to be in it.
And your background, Paul, as a worship leader in your church, you've taught in Sunday school, and now you're teaching the world through movies. How does that feel?
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, my parents are proud of me, that I'm in a wonderful movie and being able to do this and share this with the world. But, to me, it's just a really wonderful opportunity for me to just act and be a character and be able to play a part that moves people. And to me, that's a very satisfying thing to have.
And Trisha, I understand a part of your life is that you actually teach students, people to act. So you teach us, and now you're on the screen in a big movie. What are your students? How do they react to you on the big screen? Teacher up there.
Oh, everybody's, really excited. I work at a professional acting studio in Hollywood called Leslie Kahn and Company, and most of the teachers are on TV shows or doing movies, so it's not super rare. Although movies is a little more rare. I have to say, a lot of the faculty is on a television. Many of the faculty members are on television shows and come back to teach when they're on hiatus or in between jobs. But to be in a movie that made 60 million, 80 million, whatever the number is, that's huge. And it's so funny that you even bring that up, because our director, Harold Kronk, who's one of my dearest friends now through all the time that we spent together in reshoots, he's come to watch my class and sit in on my class, and he's encouraged actually our producer Brittany to come watch me teach, to learn more about the acting side of filmmaking, because you would be surprised, sometimes that's the last thing of the concern. I mean, the first movie that we did, we were on a beyond shoestring budget. We had, we were shooting 7.5, 8.5 pages a day, which means nothing to the people, but it's a lot of pages. It's far too many pages to be shooting in one day. So they were lucky if they got to hang a light before, they called action and we went. So hopefully the acting was where they wanted to be, or the storytelling and the scenes were going the way they wanted it to be. But in this movie, we had a little bit more of a budget and a little more time. So we had such a great time. The crew in Arkansas was amazing. And they kind of knew how we felt about how the first movie looked. And we really it's gorgeous. This movie is, God's Not Dead 2 is stunning. And if you like the first one, you will love the second one even more, because it just looks so great.
Welcome back. We're going to be having more live events at the studio. We're going to be shooting more videos. Of course, as usual, excellent photography, audio production, all-round multimedia. Icon Towers is the place to be. Anyway, I need to sign out now. Next week, same time, same station, same platform. See ya.